Okay, so I'm not sure if this is the best time to talk about it because I'm so tired. It's Friday, what, 12:20 at night, um, and it's been a rough week with Jerry, my father-in-law, being very, very sick, my Aunt Margie being very, very sick, um, fires all over California, and hearing about family and friends that have lost everything. It's been an emotional week, and I'm just not, I'm not 100%. So if I seem like blah, and it's been rough. Anyway, as I mentioned in another video or two, this is Chris Gibson, and let me just hold him up here. That's Chris, and the stuff that was going on in my life at the time, I hated myself. In my 7th grade, I felt invisible. I felt like nobody cared. I felt like the only adult really in my life that cared was my mom, and she was working so hard to support us, and I felt like I was a burden. And I don't know. It was just miserable. My mom and dad had gone through a divorce, and I was really feeling sorry for myself and feeling suicidal and doing stupid things. In 8th grade, I just basically dropped out of school. I got in fights, got beat up in the bathroom, just stupid things like that. And I ended up getting kicked out of school, out of Pomalita Middle School. It was the only middle school in town. How do you get kicked out of the only middle school in town? Anyway, that was me. So they sent me to Redwood Valley Middle School. And it was out of town. So my mom had to drive me out to the edge of town to get on the bus. And then, I got on the bus there and went out to Redwood Valley and got kicked out of there my first day, sent back to Pomalita, and back to Pomalita Middle School. They put me back in classes. I got in more trouble, left again, got sent to Bible Baptist Church and School, Pastor Jim Bailey, and who was amazing. I wasn't. The only two 8th graders were me and my cousin Rick. Rick is now passed, and he ended up in a lot of trouble and going to prison and things like that. Things I probably would have done too, had I got caught for half the crap that I was doing. But I basically, at the end of that year, was suicidal. I dropped out of even that school, and I was really done. I really was done with life in general. And I went back the next year. We had summer, and I went back because my brother had moved up from 6th grade to 7th grade, and my mom wanted me to take him to school. So I was planning on going to school and leaving, because I found out I got to do 8th grade again. How stupid is that? I'm definitely not doing that. I'm going to be, laughed at. And then I get there to drop him off, and they call me in and have me sit down, and they explain they're going to put me in a special ed class. And I'm like, I got to do 8th grade again and I have special ed? I don't think so. And so then I'm sitting there waiting for my special ed teacher to come in, and he comes in, and it's Chris. And Chris says, it says special ed, but it's just called the opportunity class. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this hippie guy comes in. He's got this T-shirt with leaf imprints on his shirt that he or his wife or somebody has dipped in paint and stuck on his shirt. And I'm like, this hippie guy is in here. He's going to try to talk to me and make me a student, And I'm like, this is stupid. So he takes me over to his class, and he's explaining to me, I am going to be here for you. I see you. I hear you. And in my head, I'm thinking that would be nice, but he's just one of those teacher people, And so he tells me, if I don't show up at school, he's going to be there to pick me up. So the next day, my mom tried to get me out of bed. I would not move. My own kids have done this to me, so I know how she felt. But I just decided I wasn't going to go on anymore. And it was more than just not going to school. I mean, I don't want to be too dramatic, but I don't think I would have survived that week without Chris stepping in. And, my gosh, try to do this here. And a little while later, I'm awoken by the sound of a knock on my bedroom door. And the next thing I know, here comes Chris. He had left Ingrid, not Ingrid. Oh my goodness, I can't remember her name. Ingrid was one of them from the high school. I think it started with an N. Anyway, he had left his aide in charge and came to my house and knocked on the door and told me, get up and get ready or I'm taking you like you are. And I'm, get out of my bedroom, you weirdo. And so he ends up taking me to school. And he tells me he's not going to give up on me. He's going to be there for me. He's going to make sure things go well. And so for the first month or so, I just was in just his class. We did some athletic stuff. We did drawing. Things that were interesting to me. And he sent me, after a month or so, he wanted to put me in regular classes. He said, you are smart enough to be able to do all of this. And it was nice to hear that, but I knew I wasn't. And so he put me in science, and in my science class, one of the things I did was program. They had it was an Atari, and it didn't have graphics or anything. And so what I did is I took the computer and I programmed a heart diagram using just text characters, because back then that's all we had. We didn't have graphics. So I programmed it with like basically lines and whatever, and the left atrium would flash, or the right ventricle, or the superior vena cava, or whatever, and then you had to type the name at the bottom, and it had little dashes and stuff. It was like really an early video game, and an early educational video game, long before I think they really had a lot of these things. They might have had them, I'm not sure, but this was probably 1982-ish. And anyway, she just thought it was the coolest thing ever, and I would get these things these progress reports, and she would send home, Miss Merrifield, I think was her name. I'm sorry, it's late and I'm not remembering names. I don't think it was Merrifield. Anyway, she would send home progress reports, and it was like A, excellent, 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 and I hadn't gotten those things in so long. And then he put me in history, and I went to my history class, and they did a family tree project and stuff that I got into, and I started drawing things for my reports, and I drew all these different soldier uniforms and stuff, and so I just got myself into it. In my Miss Insco's class, I did the spelling bee, which I placed really well, except for misspelling quintessence. It was funny because we had gone through all of the people, several rounds, and they said, well, these guys are so good, we're obviously not going to get through all the stuff, so we're going to move to the hard list. And then I was the first person up. And then everybody after me, with the exception of a couple people, also missed their words. But we were going from these real words to all of a sudden quintessence. And I'm like, I had never even heard the word. Anyway, I put Quintescence. Somehow mixing scent with whatever quintessence was. And I really did well. I designed the cover of the school newspaper that year, the Pomalita Palaver, or whatever. What kind of name is that? Anyway, I joined a weight loss group that year, and I lost 30-something pounds, and the only 2 days I missed from school that year were the days I went to a award ceremony for my weight loss. So anyway, it was an amazing year, and Chris showed me that adults cared, and he showed me that teachers could make a difference, and he showed me that, dang it, I was going to almost get through this whole story. He showed me that that the love of a stranger, a teacher, could save a life. So I knew at that moment I wanted to someday be a teacher. Now, I wasn't fixed by any stretch of the imagination. I went on to high school where I fell apart again. I was saved there by my friend Troy, who I met in art class, but that's another video. But Chris had been there for me and guided me through some of the toughest things that I could ever go through. And it was amazing because when I finally got my crap together and went back to become a teacher, I went to teach 7th grade, and there in my 7th grade class was Riley Gibson, Chris's son. And so here I had the chance to teach Chris's son, and I would not have even been there if it wasn't for Chris. Anyway, since that time, I've had students tell me that they wouldn't be here if it wasn't for me. And I try to give all the credit to Chris. And I told Chris that. And Chris said, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for a teacher. So I hope that I hope that someday that one of my students goes on to become a teacher and they can make that same difference. It is beyond humbling. Everybody wants to make a difference in this world, but to know that you made a difference like that, it's beyond words. Anyway, I love teaching. I would never have even considered it if it wasn't for Chris Gibson. So if anybody ever talks about the stuff that I did for them, it's because of him. Anyway, years later, I wrote a letter to the editor of the Ukiah Daily Journal thanking Chris for being there for me and all of that. And he sent me a letter, and I'll try to dig it out somewhere, but he sent me a letter thanking me because he said he was having a really hard time. I think it was something like his father had died, and he was just burnt out and tired and all of that, and getting that letter recharged him. And it was, I can't even explain it. It was miraculous for me. But later, Chris taught my children, my twins, at elementary school. He had moved down to elementary, not down, grade-wise, not importance-wise. And so it's just this amazing full circle that came back again and again, and it's still coming around because people will come to me with problems, and I try to approach them as honestly as I can. I do my best to be human and to tell them that I love them, and to try to show them that I'm there for them. And that's what Chris did for me. It didn't matter what anybody else did or said. He listened to me. It wasn't like I had to worry whether he believed me or not, because he was going to believe me. So I try to always be that guy. Anyway, I swear I'm not going to cry at every video I post, although it's the real me. So anyway, thank you for sitting through that story as somebody you probably don't know, and probably never will, but you are not as complete because of that, if that makes any sense. Oh my gosh, I'm so weird when I'm tired. Anyway, with this randomness around, this is our new office area, and it's going to be my workshop and stuff. But you can see I've got bookshelves, and I've got all this kind of stuff over here. Over here's a slot machine, and this is just a couple chairs we got really cheap at the Goodwill. Actually, it was at the KARM store, KARM, Knox Area Rescue Missions, where my son David worked. And they were like $30 for 2 chairs, and with him we got them for like $24 or something like that. Anyway, they're not the best chairs. They're not super comfortable, but we're also poor because I'm a teacher. That's one thing that Chris never told me, is that you're really poor when you're a teacher, but it's worth it. I would never change that in my life. I'm blessed, beyond blessed. Thank you for hanging out with me.